All right, guys, Rusty Hawk Productions want to thank you guys for joining us. We are going to go, well, I am going to go live tonight, and we are going to discuss some topics. This is our first live stream. Rusty was going to be on here. He has some stuff going on, so he is not going to be joining tonight. But we had some pretty important topics we wanted to touch on, and I decided, you know what? I'm home. I was ready to go live. I'm going to go live anyway. So basically, just wanted to talk about a few things. First and foremost, this is our first live broadcast, and this is something we're hoping to be able to do on a weekly. We have been trying to put this podcast together for a while, and we are hoping to make a difference in the conservative mindset. Also in the liberal mindset about conservatives. I am a very strong supporter of liberal social policy as far as, my social mindset is very liberal minded. My fiscal side is very conservative minded, being a small business owner, having really taken the brunt of the hit in COVID due to my industries. I work in travel and hospitality and as a DJ. So I took the trifecta home during COVID and really struggled, really had a hard time. One of the things we wanted to do after the last election was remind Americans that the word conservative is not criminal. It is not bad. It is not racist. There are some wonderful people in this country with conservative-minded principles that are also, like me, socially very liberal. If you want to marry whoever you want, go for it. There are extremes on both sides, but we don't want to focus on that. We want to really try to focus on bringing kindness and tolerance and acceptance back to the general mindset when it comes to the Conservative Party. Our hope is on this podcast to engage with people from both sides and have real conversation about how it affects real Americans, how policies are going to affect real Americans, what you're going to see in your bank account, what you're going to lose in your bank account, how your inheritance is going to be affected, how taxation is going to play a role in your lives over the next few years, and what's going on. And we really hope to touch on things in a way that we can showcase the positive in both sides. If Democrats are doing things that, we can get behind and support, I want to shout out those people. And one of those people this week is Joe Manchin. Joe Manchin has really brought some common sense approach into, the congressional side of things. And that is extremely refreshing to see when the division has just been pushed so strongly, extreme left or extreme right. We don't want to see that continue. We want to unite America, and we start by uniting the people. That's one thing I think politicians miss. Politicians speak to us like we're all, just not intelligent and are incapable of making proper decisions for ourselves, or we're incapable of tolerating a viewpoint different than our own. And that is just not factual. That's not true. We can handle a different viewpoint. We can, as Americans, listen to other people talk and treat them civilly and with respect, and maybe be enlightened to something that we didn't think of. Maybe it's just an opinion. Maybe it's a viewpoint. Maybe it's a policy. Whatever it be, we can look at it a little differently and be thankful for it. So that's a little background as to what's going on. Some of the things I wanted to touch on this week that I think are important topics, and leave a comment. If you're watching this for the first time, or if you start to see it, please leave a comment. Leave some information, leave a topic you would like us to discuss, ask a question you would like answered, name a guest if you know someone in the Conservative Party or even a Democrat for that matter, that you think would be worthy of having on one of our podcasts and getting them on to talk about politics, to talk about what's going on in the country, to share opinions about new policies, about the spending, about, what the current administration is doing, both good and bad. People love to criticize the prior administration, but it seemed no one in the media really ever gave that administration credit for the positive things that happened. And there were a lot. Like, just because you don't like someone as a person doesn't mean they are ineffective at the job that they do. And that is something that we lose sometimes in this country. We literally will turn our heads sideways and refuse to acknowledge the good someone did just because we don't like someone as a person. And that's sad. It's truly sad, because if at the end of the day, the policy is working and benefiting the United States people, we should be able to say, hey, whether I like someone or not, this policy is good. And granted, you are not always going to get everyone in agreement of a policy being good, because we all have our own agendas. We all have our own personal opinions on certain policy. My parents always voted one issue. Like, they would have their one issue, and that's the candidate they voted for. And it wasn't party restrictive. It was who was going to do the best for their one issue. And we've kind of stepped away from that in this country. And it's sad. But there's a lot of stuff going on, and there's a couple topics I want to jump into. The emails with Dr. Fauci that came out over the last couple of weeks. Granted, they were super early on, in fairness and in full disclosure. They were super early on in the pandemic. And even though they do raise some questions, here's the reality. And this I have said to friends since day one. No matter who was president during the COVID-19 pandemic, they were destined to fail in the court of public opinion for how they handled it. Because one, this was an unprecedented circumstance that no country in the world had ever experienced to this level. And I should say that no civilized country had experienced. Third world countries have dealt with pandemics for centuries, and some have killed millions. And it is tragic and it is sad. But a civilized, first world country has never experienced what we just went through. Any world leader in that position was going to deal with unprecedented judgment, criticism, no matter what they decided. I mean, the current president actually condemned our former president's actions early on that actually did start to help control the spread by limiting travel. It's all arguable. I'm not going to get into the whole debate of it, but Dr. Fauci has publicly kind of flip-flopped a lot, and he's been criticized for it. The CDC has said one thing, and then a week later they go the other direction. It's really dependent on what's going on. And, Dr. Fauci claimed he didn't want to speak on the mask issue early on because he didn't want everyone in the country going out and buying all that N95 masks that the nursing staff, hospital staff, and medical professionals were going to need. He didn't want the supplies being wiped out. There's all kinds of speculation. There are conspiracy theorists that have come out and said different things. And what's strangely enough, people were criticized as being conspiracy theorists, yet some of the facts now coming to light point direction to the fact that some of those conspiracy theories weren't so crazy. Just, again, kind of reality. Time takes its toll. But time is the big one. And when you had no time to make decisions and had to make calls immediately to benefit your entire country's population, you do the best you can. And whether it had been, Donald Trump, Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, it doesn't matter who had won. It doesn't matter who had been president when that happens. The court of public opinion was going to vilify them at some level for what happened during COVID. COVID was the craziest thing of my lifetime, probably the craziest thing of your lifetime. However, some of the stories I've seen of people coming up and rising together to help each other, David Portnoy starting his fund to take care of it. It basically started taking care of New York restaurants. It expanded a little bit. They raised almost $40 million to make sure that they were taking care of people that were closed down due to the pandemic. What an amazing story. What an amazing American unification, and just incredible person stepping forward to do great things. Those are the types of stories we want to showcase on this podcast. We want to reward the people that do amazing things like David Portnoy did. There are countless others. There are business owners that rose up and defied and fought because the hypocrisy going on right next to their business being shut down, a business being allowed to open and do the same exact thing. There was the movie theater, the movie company that was feeding and had the cafe set up for the actors and set up next to a restaurant that was told she had to shut down, and the serving facilities were literally the exact same. It was great to see people stand up and believe in their rights and believe in what they could do. There were some sad things that happened too, but again, this was unprecedented, and now we're watching the new administration, and it's been kind of funny to see the flip-flop in regards to the border, to have Kamala Harris sitting in Guatemala yesterday saying, do not come. A year ago, she said, America is the country that opens its arms and accepts all. And you realize that there has to be a level of regulation. There has to be a cap. There has to be a procedure in place in order for the system to work. And that's one of the things that, the Trump administration had done very well, was securing the border to the point where people didn't feel like they could just come across. There was a consequence that was feared. And when you remove that fear of consequence, people take more risks. And now the humanitarian side of that is that, believe it or not, people are getting hurt. People are being, raped, abused, enslaved. There's all kinds of things that are going on as these migrant caravans go up to the point where they then have to pay cartel members in order to be ushered across. The cartels are making an estimated $40 million a month helping people get across the border. And it is just crazy when you start to think about these numbers and what's going on, and to see other parties. It's been refreshing for me as a conservative the last couple of weeks to see the Democratic Party kind of infighting. AOC has made a lot of commentary lately that could be judged pretty harshly. But she really condemned Kamala Harris for her comments about the border when she was speaking in Guatemala. In the interview Kamala Harris was in this week, she kind of laughed off the border question that she received and said, we've been to the border. I haven't even been to Europe. Why is this question relevant right now? Well, it's relevant because facilities that were set up and built during the Obama administration and then utilized under the Trump administration now have capacity regulations that are 10 times what the capacity they were built for. And Trump was criticized for having people in those facilities when it wasn't even 2 times the capacity. And now they're 5, 6, and 7 times the capacity, some of them, some even more. And somehow it's different. It's not different. We have established an open-ended invitation to people of other countries to come to America, and they believe that Joe Biden is going to let them in, and they will be taken care of, and everything will happen for a reason, and they will be good to go. And, you know, they're issuing court dates 4 to 6 years out, I believe I heard. And again, this is an opinion show. I'm going to quote some stuff that I've heard. I do some research myself, and I will in the future also be, you know, quoting directly from news sources. And no, I don't just watch Fox News. I utilize The Hill, NPR, the BBC, Al Jazeera. I enjoy watching news from other countries to see a open-ended perspective on America and what other people think is going on. So I use multiple news sources, and I will try to quote some of those multiple news sources. So one of the things that we really do try to do is be open-minded. And I think conservatives and Democrats alike can benefit from opening their minds a little bit and being willing to listen and hear the other side. And one of the segments we look forward to doing on this podcast is a segment called Politic with Nick. Nick is a Democrat from Mississippi. He is an Afro-American man, you know, like awesome guy, one of my best friends. You know, he is just one of the most amazing people I know. He is incredibly well educated. And one of the things I really love about talking with Nick and politicking with Nick is that Nick will bring arguments and mindsets to the table that I haven't thought of. And one of the things I do with Nick is the same. I bring the same thing. And when we start to discuss things, we start to realize that both as a liberal that he is and as a conservative that I am, we are pretty close and centered on most issues, where I'd say 70% of stuff we're pretty close on. Some of the racially motivated stuff, he has enlightened me and educated me to the viewpoints that I just don't understand because I've never been a black man in America. And I can't be the person to try to tell you I know what that's like, but Nick can. And that's why I want Nick on the podcast with me sometimes. And that's why we're going to have some great stuff to bring your way. You know, this week, like I said, the AOC comments. Another big thing this week that kind of happened, cryptocurrency. Not so much party divisive, but just in the news, and something I feel very strongly about and talking about. A lot of people have, you know, taken the dive into purchasing cryptocurrency this year, and crypto's been all over the place. Elon Musk was tweeting; it was going woo 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 woo, crazy, crazy, crazy. Yesterday, President Trump, former President Trump, in a interview with Stuart Varney, spoke on crypto and his thoughts on Bitcoin. One of the things Trump said was that he felt the stock market was overvalued, which, number one, I totally agree with him right now, that with inflation impending, there is going to be a correction in the stock market, in my humble opinion, of probably 10 to 12%. The crypto side of things, he felt his comment directly was Bitcoin is a scam. And there was a huge cryptocurrency conference in Miami this past weekend. A lot of people speculated crypto would start to climb after the conference and the mainstream media coverage of it. It kind of went the other way. And after Trump made his comments, it really dropped off for a while. It regained about 5% It climbed 5% after hours today and kind of got back. Last I had checked, Bitcoin was about 33,000. Dogecoin was at like 31 cents. The Ethereum was around 2,400, I believe. So it was interesting to hear the former president say that he felt it was a bit of a scam. I personally think cryptocurrency is going to play a big part in our future. I do think the number of altcoins that are out there are going to decline and get absorbed up into the current existing network because there's a lot of stuff out there. Crypto, I feel, is probably still a little overvalued and going to come to reality. But one of the most interesting things I thought that happened this week that I feel also affected the value of Bitcoin was the FBI was able to recover the funds that were paid in ransom for the pipeline attack, cyber attack recently that resulted in the fuel shortages along the East Coast. That's huge. There has been an anonymity associated with Bitcoin ownership that was very attractive for a lot of people that, it was untraceable. You couldn't find where it came from. You didn't know who owned it, this, that, and the other. And to me in the future, it's using blockchain technology for the most part anyway. So they are using a computer network. They're going to be able to trace where it's going, what IP it gets sent to, whose crypto wallet it goes into. There's going to be ways to trace it. Obviously, that does hold true because the FBI was able to recover 63 of the 75 Bitcoins that were paid in this ransom. So that being said, that's another step that I think made some Bitcoin investors a little shaky. The fact that now they can trace you, they can find you, they can get that money back. So there's not necessarily the level of anonymity that a lot of people assumed. Impending taxes. I was talking to a friend about this today. Okay, we're going to wipe out your school loans and your school debt and everything else. Okay, great. That sounds great on paper. But who are the most successful college students? They're the college students that take it seriously because they have to pay for it themselves. The kids that are getting the funds from mommy or daddy or getting the free ride tend to take college a little less seriously for the most part. I'm not speaking badly about any college kids. Let me correct it myself here. There are plenty of kids that do fight hard, even on mom and dad's dime. But there's a lot of kids that are still 18 to 22 years old that are using college as an opportunity to continue the high school party, except they're just legally old enough to drink. Frat houses, sorority houses, they're full, they're partying, having a good time. And a lot of these people, if you wipe out their debt, you're really not aiding and teaching them any level of responsibility. And that's one of the things I think our country lacks. I think right now you're seeing a generation with a very light work ethic. They will run away from a job faster than you can count to three, and they will chase money. The loyalty in the workplace. Now, granted, that is from the employer level down to the employee, because I've seen plenty of companies treat their employees like crap too. But I'd love to see workplace loyalty come back. I grew up in a generation where my father worked at the same job for 40 years. Then he got screwed over by the job when he left. And it happens. But it would be nice to see loyalty be something that's brought back in our country. Brand loyalty, punctuality, buying American made, doing the things that we can do to help our country be great. And I feel like we're losing some of those things along our way. And that's concerning to me. Energy independence was a great thing. Now, I agree with you that we should do more to try to be green to the environment and everything else. But you also have to be realistic for what can be done in what time frame. You can't mine enough lithium to make enough batteries to make every car electric in the US by 2035. Do the math on the production numbers alone. Run the numbers, read the reports. You can't make enough cars for it to satisfy the number of vehicles currently being driven in the United States. There are so many problems, logistical problems, with what this administration is trying to accomplish that are literally impossible, that if you start to punish fossil, they're talking about taxation on fossil fuel companies, additional taxation, additional fees, additional charges. Well, what's that going to do? It's going to pump up gas prices. It's going to, increase costs of transportation for oil and gas throughout the country. There's the consumer is always the one that takes it on the chin. If the company has to pay more, they pass it down to the consumer. So it is always the little guy that suffers. So we have to be careful about what we allow these administrations to do on both sides, as far as taxing the little guy, charging the little guy. To go back to the school topic, if we wipe out everybody's debt, right? And then we add this inheritance tax they're talking about. So now I paid for college, and I go through my life and I work and I save and I build a retirement, and say I have $5 million that I've already paid taxes on multiple times to build my $5 million of investment that I want to leave to my child to have a better quality life. According to what's being presented right now, that $5 million that I've already been taxed on multiple times, if I took it out of a 401k or took it out of an investment account or bought stocks or just earned and paid my federal income tax and my state income tax on and chose to put it in the bank, and I saved that money and I've been taxed on it. Now I'm going to owe another 50% to the government to give my daughter $5 million that I've already been taxed on and paid for. She's going to get $2.5 million. That is insane to me. That is insanity. That is total mismanagement of money on the taxation front from the United States government. They are now spending so much money that the average American owes over $200,000 in tax debt. If you divided the $28 trillion into tax-paying American citizens currently, the number was, I believe, don't quote me on it, but I believe it was $226,000 per tax-paying American is owed to the U.S. government. That means everybody walking around right now owes almost $250,000 in taxes in order to eliminate our national debt. Yet we have companies like Amazon, the NFL, and others that are exempt and don't pay taxes. That, to me, is an even bigger crime. And that's where I do agree with many liberals. So there are things, I pay my taxes as the little guy. The big guy damn sure should be paying his taxes. So there are so many things that this group and this podcast are going to be able to discuss in coming weeks. And the bottom line is, we want you guys to be part of it. We want the American people to be part of this. We want to laugh at our government when our government thinks we are so ignorant that they can do whatever they want. We are the heartbeat of our country, the citizens. And if we can build enough of a movement to unite our parties to a point where we can truly start to agree that we're being played like a fiddle by mainstream media, by politicians, we are far more united than we are divided. And the goal of this group is to unite American citizens into an understanding by sharing knowledge, real conversation, not speaking over the intellect of the majority of America, not speaking in the political jargon that never gives a clear answer, runs around and avoids the topic, the look over here while I do this over here. We don't want to do that. No shake and bakes. No, I'm gonna work my magic. No politically, the true politically correct answer that no politician ever really says yes or no. They circle back. We want to answer it. We want to have conversations about opinions, and we want to be able to form them and share them. And we want to do so respectfully. We want to do so with kindness. We want to appreciate those stepping up into the world and making a positive difference, no matter what party they are in. One of the features we'll be doing on the show is a thing called the D of the Week. We hope that D of the Week is a Democrat, but sometimes that D of the Week is going to be a Republican. Sometimes that person in the week is going to be kind of an idiot. We're also going to do a segment called Making It Right. And this week's Making It Right for me, I want to actually thank Senator Joe Manchin. He doesn't want the filibuster being eliminated. He's speaking up and he's sharing his voice about how far this goes the other way is a danger that we need to be careful of walking. We can't make these real extreme back and forths every 4 years. We need to find some middle ground where both parties can kind of come to an agreement that's going to better the country. You can't just sign 10 executive orders and then the next president sign 20 and then the next president sign 30 and then try to spend their entire administration making those executive orders into law, when what we should be doing is negotiating the law properly between two parties where people don't, send out so much hate that they just refuse to listen to the other side. We need to get back to real negotiation. We need to get back to real understanding. We need to be getting back to the point where everyone's not a keyboard warrior and you have to answer for what you're saying. And sometimes you're going to have to admit you were wrong. Sometimes you're going to have to share an apology. Sometimes you're going to have to sit before someone and say, you know what? I was kind of stupid and I never thought about it from your perspective, but you enlightened me to realize, whoops, I was wrong. Those are words that this country needs to learn to say again. It needs to be okay with making a mistake. It needs to be okay with owning up to something and not just throwing it on the other side like it's always their fault. Both parties have made some extremely poor decisions over the past few years. Both parties. And if you're honest with yourself, you know damn well that that's a true statement. Okay? This has not been the best political climate that I have lived through, and I want to see it get fixed. I want to see some respect come back to our leadership. I want the President of the United States to be referred to as the President of the United States with respect, like that position should be, regardless as to who holds it. They were voted in by American citizens. Whether you like that president or not, I served in the U.S. military. That was my commander-in-chief, whether I liked him or not. And I was taken off a detail in 1996 where I had the opportunity to meet President Clinton. And I was taken off that detail because I didn't approve of someone who I felt had dodged the draft being the president, and it bothered me. And I was asked about it, and I said it bothered me. So I was removed from the detail. But I still always respected him as my commander-in-chief because that's what he was, even though I didn't like him. And we need to get back to that in this country. And that's part of what You Left Because I'm Right. That's what we want to try to do. So in the future, it may just be me. It may be me and Nick. Maybe my boy Rusty makes some appearances. We will see. He's got a lot going on in life right now. But we had planned to start this in April. It's June. To me, we had to start making some decisions and making some time. So it is a good time to have this discussion. I think it's important that it takes place before the next election, and we'll see what happens. But I want to thank you guys for tuning in for the first episode of You Left Because I'm Right. And I hope we see some of you again soon. And I hope to get some feedback and commentary from you guys on what we can do to make our country more united between both parties and share kindness and the ability to listen to the other side without setting up to argue with them. Actually listen. Give them your ear. Have a conversation. Be respectful. But you know what? At the end of the day, hopefully we still make some changes and make some differences and give the American people a voice on a podcast or on a live stream that lets people be heard in America. Real Americans, real voters, business owners, people trying to make a difference, people trying to help others that are getting judged as conservatives but are doing great things in our society and not getting the recognition of being great people or great, compassionate, charitable givers. It's sad. And I want to see that change. And I hope you want to see it change too. And if you do, like, share, follow, and become part of the group that wants to bring a positive face back to conservative politics in America. And it all starts here. You Left Because I'm Right. We appreciate you. We love you guys. And we can't wait to get this live stream rolling on a weekly where we can have real conversation with real Americans and listen to both sides and give both sides a chance to speak, share, and be respectful. Most of all, be respectful and kind, and talk about how we can change the world in the future to make the world a better place for our family, our friends, and our children. God bless y'all. Have a great night.